Hello, you ever feel like David? One problem after another problem, and as soon as you get things taken care of, something else comes along. Well, that's just exactly what's happening to David as we see him returning as king, part 2. David ended chapter 19 of 2 Samuel by trying to repeat something that had worked for him in the past. When he first became king over all of Israel, he collected his fellow tribesmen from Judah. Once they were situated and he was pronounced king of Judah, all of Israel came in and he was then king of Israel. And he thought, that worked before, let's try it again. Here's our first principle. New people, new circumstances require new methods. We all go through that in life. It worked before. I already know how to do it. It's new. You have to do something different. And David realized this very quickly. When David allowed the men of Judah to take him across the Jordan without waiting for all the tribes to arrive, he found out he was in trouble. When those people of Israel came, they were upset that he hadn't waited for them, that he had allowed only his tribesmen to take him across, and matters were not helped one bit. When the people of Judah said, he's our tribesman. He belongs to us. Well, what did David do? Did he calm the situation? Did he try to make peace? Did he say, hey, I'm everyone's king? No, he just stood by, watched, and listened. He did nothing to assure the Israelites of their importance. Our second principle for today, leadership is not maintained by ignoring people. Everybody's important. And David had been king long enough that he certainly should have realized that. But he didn't. And so 2 Samuel chapter 20 starts out with this verse. It says, "Now there happened to be there a rebel whose name was Sheba. It would seem that his presence was unplanned, that, he just happened along. No, it was ordered by God. Sheba was a Benjamite who took advantage of the situation. And though nothing else is known of Sheba, many assume that he was a kinsman and perhaps even a near kinsman of Saul. And also the fact that he's a Benjaminite, and right there, remember that guy Shimei from the last lesson? Perhaps he was one of those thousands who came along with him. He blew a trumpet and said that everybody should go back to their tents. What he was doing in doing that was saying that the people around him should declare him as king. He says, we have no part in this son of Jesse. Calling David the son of Jesse rather than King David was really an insult. An insult not because Jesse was a bad guy, a bad father, but because it was demoting David. It was being too familiar with him. It was saying, you're no longer a king, you're just a private citizen. And so that cry fired excitement and it appealed to their emotions. David found himself deserted by everyone except his own tribe, those men of Judah and loyal soldiers who were following after him. And that's the way the king came back into Jerusalem. But every step he took along his march just enforced it upon his heart. Something has to be done to put down this rebellion of Sheba. Arriving back in Jerusalem, though, he first of all, had to set his own household in order. Can you imagine going back to a palace that had been not only deserted for probably a year or two, maybe even longer, but overtaken by Absalom and his men? And one of the real things that David had to deal with was what to do with those 10 concubines, those 10 women that Absalom had so violated. David did something that was probably in that day would be very sympathetic, although today might seem cruel. It says that he shut them away. He put them in seclusion. Now, in that day and time, this was no real big problem because women then were not allowed to go out in public anyway, and when they did, they were very closely guarded. So this in itself was not such a big deal. And the fact that he put them away and did not divorce them was also very kind, because that meant he was going to care for them for the rest of their life. He could not see himself having relationships with him because that would be incest after what Absalom had done. And he would not allow any other man to take a woman that had been his wife. So he placed them here. And this action, though, was a very costly delay on his part. Putting his house back in order, taking care of the concubines. It was necessary and important. It was something that David had to do. But on the other hand, looking at it from the viewpoint of an outsider, how did the people see it? Many of them saw it as just another time that David chose family over his responsibility as king. He didn't stay in the family mode for long, though. True to his promise that he had made back in chapter 19, he promoted Amasa, who had been Absalom's general, but was a Benjaminite, head of the troops. And he gave Amasa 3 days. He says, Amasa, I want you to meet me in Jerusalem in 3 days, and I want you to bring an army. Get them together, sufficient enough to overtake Sheba. David was a military man. He knew how long it took to get troops together. And he also supposed, having Amasa's background in being a leader, that he would be able to do it within the time frame. Whether it was Amasa's lack of ability or just the people being tired of another war and not wanting to sign up, Amasa didn't show up within the 3 days. What's David to do? He doesn't want to put Joab back. He's still mad at him for killing Absalom and disobeying his command in too many other ways. So he chose Abishai, Joab's brother. And he told Abishai, I want you to take the troops and lead them out into battle against Sheba. If this did anything, it was to wound the pride and arouse the anger in the old general Joab. He decided he'd go out to battle anyway, even if he had to do it as second in command under his brother. And it said Joab took his men. That lets us know that Joab had his own soldiers, just like David did. He had his own guardsmen. He had people that would follow him regardless. He was going to take them out, follow his brother, and also look for an opportunity for revenge. In verses 8 through 13, we see what happened when Joab and Amasa meet. The forces under the leader of Abishai show up at Gibeon. And when they get there, they see Amasa and hopefully his militia that he's gathered with him, coming along to meet them. It looks like he might be on his way to Jerusalem, but what's he doing back in Gibeah? What's he doing back in Saul's territory when he's supposed to be in Jerusalem? It cast a lot of suspicion on Amasa. Plus, it also makes us wonder, was he really trying to get the upper hand and make himself just invaluable to King David? Well, it appears that once the soldiers left David, that Abishai turned the command back to Joab. And Joab is still burning with the insult to his pride because of that demotion and from jealousy. He's dressed for battle. And he sees Amasa, who thinks he's going to be commander-in-chief of all the forces, all of David's forces, plus all the men that he brought with him. Joab marches out to meet him. And it looks like he's friendly. Along the way, while Joab is dressed in his military gear, he somehow drops the sword out of its sheath. Now, it looks as though it's by accident. And he goes to pick it up. It says he picks it up with his left hand, and he reaches toward Amasa with his right hand to bring him into that embrace that's so common in that country when two friends have been separated for a while. Amasa's not expecting anything. He expects he's going to be leader. He expects that Joab is giving him a friendly embrace and getting ready to welcome him in as commander. He is not expecting Joab to take that left hand and stab him right through his fifth rib, killing him with a single blow. This was done in public. All the soldiers see it. Everybody knows what happens. And there's Amasa falls. He falls. He may not die instantly. He may be going through the pains of death, wallowing there in his own blood, with men around and even coming by to see him lying there. And Scripture tells us that the sight is so bad that even seasoned warriors who see Amasa laying there stop at the sight and the horror of it, until finally the man that Joab has left with the body and with the message has to move him from the road over into the field to get the attention off of dead Amasa and back into the battle. Now the soldier was left not only to guard the body of Amasa, but also to deliver a message. And the message was, whoever favors Joab and whoever is for David, follow Joab. He joined the name of Joab with David's. This was proof of Joab's unrivaled influence, that he could just move in even after this criminal murder was perpetrated in front of all of the soldiers. Nobody questioned him. No one said, why did you do that? How can we follow a murderer? No, not even Amasa's men stood up for him. But also that union of the two names is so significant. It shows that one could not afford to do without the other. Joab did not have the power to rebel against David. He might become the leader, but he could not become the king. And poor David, he did not have the power to let go, to rid himself of Joab, even though by this time there had to be a burning hatred in him because of what had been done time and time again. First to Abner, then to his own son Absalom, and now he will soon learn to Amasa. But Joab had authority, and his military favor with the men was so great, and especially with David's guards, who never really thought that Amasa, being Absalom's general, should have had the privilege of being their commander in the first place, that he was able to just go on, and he was able to take these men, and Amasa's men, not willing to take revenge for their leader, followed right behind Joab. You see, even though these were Benjamites, they remembered David was their king. They remembered the battles that David had fought with Joab and other battles that had been fought for David under the leadership of Joab, and they were willing to switch alliance. So Joab takes off again after Sheba, and he pursues them while Sheba is going. Scripture tells us in verses 14, he's going from tribe to tribe throughout Israel, trying to gain favor, trying to stir up followers for this treason. But the fact that he kept traveling from place to place lets us know that the people really saw that the rebellion had failed, partly because of David's quick and forceful response to it. And so they were skeptical of Sheba's chances for success. Joab knew the only way that he could really defeat Sheba was just to keep going, not to let him breathe, to just stay fast on his track, not allow him to have time to gather more men, to get supplies, to gather support, or to even rest. The army overtook Sheba in the city of Abel. Joab laid siege to the fortress and hemmed in Sheba. The city was defended only by a single wall, and there was much danger of that city being destroyed if the siege were successful. And verses 16 through 22 of this chapter, we see how a wise woman intervened and saved the city. Seeing the resolve of Joab to get the rebels and to destroy the city, a wise woman speaks on behalf of the city. Here's a principle: God uses unexpected people. Think of it. Joab. We know he's dressed as a mighty warrior. He's in full armor. He has hundreds, if not thousands, of men around him. He's taking down the walls of the city. He's building a moat he's building the siege wall to go up. They're digging out the foundations to topple the wall. And he hears the voice of a woman. Now, today, women have much more respect than they did in Bible times. We already talked about how it was not going to be a big deal for those 10 concubines to live in seclusion because they could not go out in public. Well, here's a woman. Perhaps she might have a place in the government. Maybe she is the governor. Maybe the mayor or a judge like Deborah. We don't know, but she was a brave woman. She was a wise woman. She dared to speak up and get General Joab's attention. He was not expecting that. He would have expected a man to come and try to shoot him down with the arrows. He would expect the army to come against him, but he was not expecting a lone woman. But God raises up people from unexpected sources. And know that God will use you. You are only one. You might think you're insignificant. You might think, I've never done anything like this before. Should occasion arise, God put a word in your heart. It will be because He wants to give you the strength to say it, and others the ability to hear. That's what happened with this woman. She spoke, and she said, look, the people of Abel, we are victims here. Sheba came in. We are not his sympathizers. We had no idea what was going on. The city of Abel has always been a model of peace and tranquility. As a matter of fact, Joab, if you read back through history, if you listen to history and listen to people talk, you'll know that it has been said of this people that they would bring disputes here. And they would listen to decisions made here. And whatever our arbitrators or mediators would decide, that would be the decision. This has nothing to do with the way we are. And it would be wrong to destroy this city. This is a city of God, part of His inheritance. And if you destroy this, you will be destroying God's inheritance and doing something against the God of Israel Himself. Oh, this appeal was strong. She said, whatever Sheba decided to do, when he came in here, we had no part in it. Our people abhor the thoughts of war. And you can look back. We had no part in Absalom's rebellion. So she came up with a solution. She said, let us, the people, kill Sheba, and then we will throw his head over the wall to you as proof that we are innocent. Another principle. Allow God to do something new. Joab came with the men. Joab not only was a soldier, he was a commander. He was used to taking charge and coming up with a strategic battle plan. And he was used to getting the fame and the glory once the battle was over. If the battle didn't go to the King David, then it went to the commander Joab. There was no other way. No one else could get credit for solving the battle. This was something new. This was not the way it was supposed to be done. So what did Joab say? He said, deliver him only, and I will leave the city. This reply shows us the real heart of this hardened warrior. It lets us know that he really did have the best interest of his country in mind. He was not out to destroy cities. He was not out to kill innocent bystanders. No. Joab might and was deceitful, but he was not out and out cruel against his country. He just wanted the insurrection of Sheba to be delivered. That's all he was after. Once the residents of Abel killed Sheba and delivered the head of that rebel to Joab, the rebellion was over. On securing his head, Joab was ready to stop the bloodshed. He released the peaceable inhabitants of the city of Joab from all harm. He left the city. He dismissed the army, and he returned to Jerusalem. This chapter 20 ends with the last 4 verses, 23 through 26, giving a list of David's great officers. And the first one listed was Joab. Joab, commander-in-chief of David's armies. Despite the murder of Amasa, David reestablished Joab in his post of commander of chief. David, whatever his private wishes were, found out that he did not have the power to remove Joab from his post. And our final principle is deal with problems while they are small. It's easy to think, I'll just let it go. It's just small. I can overlook that. And finally, it just becomes too big. It's like having a toddler. You see them doing something cute, but you know it's wrong. And so you laugh. They get a little older. You've been laughing at that, overlooking that. They do something a little bit more, and, well, they've been doing that, and this isn't so much worth. By the time they're adults, rebellious teenagers, it's too late to deal with attitudes of the heart that should have been dealt with as a toddler. That's what David found with Joab. He did not deal with the problem when it was small, and now that it's grown and grown, it's out of hand, out of proportion. This list of officers conclude this part of 2 Samuel. Compared with the list back in chapter 8, there are variations which are to be expected because one was a list of his early reign, and now we have him at his latter reign. We're going to be looking at chapters 21 through 24, which many call the appendix because it's really hard to say when these events happen. It doesn't matter when they happen. The fact is, they did happen. And that's what we're going to be talking about next session.